Judy Henderson, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. I love being here, Walt.
Let's go back. What happened? What happened that got you to this point? Did you ever think in a million years that you'd be writing a book about this, considering where this all started?
No, I did not. Well, I thought at some point after several decades that I would want my story to be out there just to see how it could help others in a dark situation. So I can say at one point I thought I would, but I didn't do any interviews during my incarceration at all.
Take me back to that night and through the court case. What was that like? How did you get mixed up with that?
Being with the wrong person, that I did not pay any attention to any of the red flags about what his other world was actually about, or that he had another world that he was involved with, until the situation happened and I was present. I was grazed by the bullet that was fired by him that killed the victim. And then we were arrested 6 months later after being caught in Alaska. And we were running from a hitman that was sent to kill us. And then that's when the trial process started. That was a constitutional violation of my rights.
But how did it happen that, of course, you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, but you didn't pull the trigger?
No.
You're in this terrible situation. Why do you think you got convicted and the shooter didn't?
Because the gentleman that was my co-defendant and I was dating at the time, he was involved with other characters that I was unaware of that did shady dealings that were in the bonding business. And I did not know there was going to be any such incident occur, that anyone was going to be harmed, that he would even attempt to harm somebody. So whenever all this came about, it was like, I was totally in shock. I can't even explain, or I don't even know if there's any words created to explain how devastating and shocked I was to see something that I've only seen in movies happen to me. A middle-class mother of 2 children. I was a business owner, I was successful, and then in the blink of an eye, my whole life toppled upside down.
Can you describe for me what was going through your mind or what you felt when you heard guilty?
Oh my gosh. I thought, how could they find me guilty when I didn't harm anybody? When I didn't make any plans to even be involved in something like this? But then I was concerned about my family that was in the courtroom and my mother. So for that reason, I had to be strong. I did not want her to think. I was the oldest of 8 children, Walt. So I was supposed to be the strong one, the leader in the family. And my sister, that's very successful today, said, I always looked up to you, and that's who I am today because of you, because you showed such strength and courage.
I mean, it's one thing to show strength and courage, but you're found guilty, and then you're sentenced to life in prison without parole.
Correct.
How do you process that? I mean, there's one thing of being strong, but then there's like, God, what is happening?
Yeah, God and I had some very serious heart-to-heart conversations, to be blunt with you, and I wasn't very kind to him. So I was full of bitterness and anger because I was torn from the arms of my children that I had dedicated my life to. My daughter was 12, my son was 3. How could God allow something like this to happen? But I realized, Walt, that it wasn't him that allowed it to happen. It was my choices of not noticing red flags, not being alert to what was going on in my surroundings. As a battered woman, I was wired a little differently, and I hadn't had counseling, so I didn't ask questions. I just went along. But the woman I am today, I ask a lot of questions.
Yes, yes. I can imagine you've been, through hell and back in many ways. So, found guilty, sentenced to life in prison without parole. When do you start wrapping your mind around, okay, this is my new reality. I'm here forever. How do you get to that point, and what did you do to get to that point?
For one, I never felt like I would be there forever. I know that might sound a little crazy, but I knew I was innocent and I was not going to be here forever. I was going to figure out how I got there and do whatever necessary to get myself healed from the choices that I made that caused me not to pay attention to this. Why would I not know that he had another side? Why would I not ask questions? Because I was conditioned not to ask questions. My mother was an abused woman, so it was like learned behavior. You just were passive, you did the doodly things that a housewife should do. I worked from the age of 16, so I was busy with my life and the children.
Now, did you dive in to your faith and other people in prison? What got you up every day and gave you hope?
Well, the first thing, like I stated earlier, was that I had to find out why I got there, so I had to start doing therapy. I had to start figuring this out. I didn't even know there was such a term as battered syndrome, you know, for domestic violence. I didn't even know about domestic violence. It was just something that I lived with. So once I figured that out, I knew that I had so much anger, but I had to figure out how to navigate that, where to use it at, how to use it. And you can either get bitter or you can get better. And I chose better because everybody in prison, Walt, is angry. There's so much anger, and nobody cares if you're angry. They don't care because they're angry too. And so I wanted to be different. And besides, I had a job ahead of me, a big job, to go home to my family and my children. I was the oldest of 8 children, so, and I had a very loving family that stood beside me all 36 years.
What was it like in prison? What did you see? What did you deal with?
Prison was another world. It was very foreign. The language was different. The mannerisms was different. The food was different, for real. And I had to learn how to navigate that, to understand the SOPs, the standard operating procedures, their rules and laws in there. So I had to dive in, and first though, I had to create a solid foundation for myself, because in prison they take kindness for weakness. And I was kind, I was polite, I smiled all the time, I loved people. But you can't be that, have that kind of personality in such an angry, violent surrounding. So my co-defendant put a contract out on me, and that actually helped me build my foundation to earn my respect.
What does that even mean? How would you describe that for people having a contract out on you? Somebody wanted you to disappear.
Oh, yes. My co-defendant did before he went to trial, because he feared me testifying against him, which I couldn't do when I went to trial because we had the same attorney. So he fired him and hired 2 other separate attorneys to represent him, defend him. And they were, I'm not going to say they were shady. I was told that term. I'm going to put it like that. So there was a contract put out, and whenever I heard that by another offender in prison, I thought, you know what, I can't wait for that person to do anything. She was a career criminal. She was known for carrying shanks.
She was in the prison with you?
Yes.
So that gave you, in a weird way, some street cred in the prison that, hey, there's a hit out. She must be some bad mama.
Yeah.
You know, and this other person in the prison is going to try to end it.
Yes, yes.
So did you ever face her?
I had to do this on my terms. It was my life that was going to be lost, so I had to take control of the situation, and I did. I asked her to come into the restroom with me because she befriended me. She was in the cell with me in the county jail.
Was she befriending you secretly so she could get close to you?
Well, I thought we were friends in prison, but then I left and went to prison, and she was still in the county jail with my co-defendant. So they started communicating, and that's whenever they transpired. You know, it transpired and went to a contract killing. And whenever I found out about it, I asked her to, you know, I said, hey, I need you to step in the bathroom. I got to talk to you about something. And I had somebody, what they call hold bust, at the door, so they would not allow anybody in, because I was going to do what needed to be done and to save my life. And so it's so ironic because the beatings I used to take from my ex-husband for 12 years taught me how to fight. I used his technique that he used on me, I used it on her, and it worked.
You confronted a bully and just faced it.
I did. I had to face the fear and do it anyways.
So, you don't know if you're getting out. Were there any like really dark days in there?
Oh, several dark days. I was assaulted severely while I was in prison at one point, to the point where they didn't even, the medical team would not allow me to see my face. They put me in solitary confinement until I healed. So to this day, I don't know what I look like. I have no idea. But yes, there were several dark days. Every time I got a denial from the governors, I went through 6 governors. And those were dark days because my family that fought so hard and all my supporters, politicians, everybody that worked so hard for me to get it, we were devastated whenever each governor would deny me, even though 3 parole boards recommended to these 3 different governors to release me. They did not adhere to the decision from their own parole board.
So how did you keep your faith in those dark days?
It took me a minute to get there. I had to go through a 3-day retreat program called Residents Encounter Christ. And whenever I saw those volunteers that came in and sincerely showed an outpouring of love for us, that we are supposed to be the lowest society, the group in society. And so whenever they got down on their knees and washed my feet, like Martha did for Jesus, it had such profound impact on me that I thought, they're showing me the love of God. How could I turn this away? And I started seeing more light and more light, which is part of why I named the book that.
So, 35 years, what was the breakthrough moment?
After 36 years, I saw where I became a certified paralegal with honors, and because I had to learn the law, I had to learn the statutes. I had to know what statutes, what laws got me here, why all my appeals were denied all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and how do I fight to get out now that I've lost all that? So I had to learn politics, because it was politicians that made the laws, and crafted those, and got them passed. And so I ended up reaching out to all of them. I would write them because I was involved in a mother-child program, and we needed donations. So I got the directory, and I sent one to 163 state reps, 35 senators, even up to the governor's office to get them to start donating money to our program. And so I got my name out there. And then I started getting them involved in my case. And so I started building my team. And so I was trying to be very strategic about it. However, no attorneys were ever taught how to put clemency packets together, clemency briefs, how transparent you had to be, the things that need to be in that packet to show the governor. You had to paint a picture of you like you were in front of them, so they could see you, they could feel you. And so I got very good at that, and even helped other lifers get out before I did through clemencies.
How many did you help get out?
I helped one that is now an attorney for the Public Defender's Office. She did 18 years for killing her sexually abusive father. And she got out before I did, of course. She only did 18 years, and she came in as a little pup. We call them little, she was very, very young, and we call what we say, took her under my wing, so other offenders would not prey on her. And I started talking to her about her case, and we started working on her clemency with her and her family, and we are the best of friends today, and she's a great attorney.
So what was your breakthrough with Greitens, Governor Greitens?
Wow, whenever the 6th governor did not do anything, and we thought sure he would, we had big campaign donors to his campaign that had private meetings with him about it.
So you're in prison, orchestrating this network of not only donations to help people in prison.
Right.
You're also orchestrating a narrative about, let's be fair here about my case. I was wronged. And then you're also reaching out to the governor. So you actually built this political action network from prison and were running it.
Correct.
That's pretty amazing.
Can I tell you my name before I left prison, what they called me on the yard?
The mayor?
The governor.
The governor, perfect, fits. That's
what the warden let me know, that he knew that was my name on the yard. And I said, I didn't give it to myself. I didn't even know it till a caseworker told me.
Here comes the governor.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
That's great. So you had a breakthrough with Greitens.
I did. One of his legal teams came to see me 3 weeks earlier, but not promising anything, only to clear up some questions that the governor had. And it was his first year. He hadn't even been in that position for a total year, 10 months. No governor in politics wants to look soft on crime. So therefore, they don't do anything, take any action till the end of their first term, and if they're running for a second term, because they can do 2 8-year sentences or 2 4-year terms, they don't do it till 8 years down the road. But not Eric Greitens. He was amazing. He saw the miscarriage of justice. He did not care about his political career. I'm sure he cared about it, but he cared more about the human beings.
Doing the right thing.
Yes, doing the right thing, and being led by the Spirit, and being led by God to do the right thing, which is what God created us to do, was to help others in situations that where there was injustices, or they needed assistance, they needed food, whatever. So, yeah, Eric did this within 10 months of his first term.
Wow.
Yes, that was a wow.
So
that made history in Missouri.
It was a miracle, really.
Yes, it was.
If you look at it and you look at the circumstances.
Yes.
So you're pardoned, your sentence is commuted, you get released. What was the first thing you did? Have a pizza?
You want me to be honest?
Where'd you go?
My sister told me years prior, because my family was so supportive all the time, there's going to be a long black limo waiting for you whenever you come home. And this was like only maybe 10 years into my sentence. I had forgotten all about it. So I walk out of the prison with my family, and there it is, and I just break down. So what I did all the way home, the first thing I did was vomit, puke, all the way.
Just the stress and can't believe it?
Well, and I hadn't been in traveling at night. They don't take offenders out at night. You don't even see the stars at night. So there was the stars. There was this moving long vehicle that I wasn't accustomed to being in after dark. And then I was trying to do interviews on the phone, and they had champagne because I wasn't on parole. You know, I could have a drink if I wanted it.
Sure.
And it was like, okay. Well, that didn't sit so well. And we had a 3-hour drive, and I don't know why this limo driver took us on the backcountry roads, but it was horrid. But the good part was, after I went to a state representative's house there in the town that had been to visit me for 28 years. He worked on my release.
Wow.
And so we had a little get-together there. And so I had great food that I'd never tasted before. All the volunteers that had worked with me through the years in prison were there because they lived in that community, and they wanted to celebrate my release.
That's exciting.
And then I went to my daughter's, and unbeknownst to me, there was tons of people there with gifts, and I saw strawberries. Strawberries that I hadn't had. Yes, yes. It was awesome.
What a celebration.
It was.
So you get your bearings, you're released. Why did you decide to write the book?
Because I felt like, you know, it just appeared that different people I would tell about my situation, they seemed so emotionally moved by it. And they said, Judy, you've got to write a book because this can help so many people that are in dark places. And I thought I was going to go home and just leave it behind me, even though I had thought about writing a book, because I even made a vision board with a book on it. And while I was in prison in 2006. So I started thinking about it, and I thought, you know what? My life, my purpose was to walk this journey and to reach out to help others. So I thought, the light found me. I want the light to find others.
I wanted to ask, why did you name it When the Light Finds Us?
Because God was my light, and He is the light of the world. And it even states that He is the light and the way in the Bible.
You were in a dark place.
Very, very dark. And I would like to point something else out about Governor Greitens. He was my 7th governor, which is God's number of completion.
Yeah.
So God was in this miracle the whole way. It was the enemy that kept wanting to keep me down, wanted to fill me with anger and hatred, and I didn't want that. I didn't want that for my life. I wanted a future, not a past.
So what do you hope people take from this book as they read the pages?
I want them to feel the spirit that's in this book. We were very methodical about writing this. We wanted to be sure, and it took us 6 years to do it, because I wanted people to feel it whenever they read it and understand that even though I was in a dark place, maybe you're in a dark place somewhere in your life, and you need to hear these words. You need to feel what it feels like to have that light find you and change your situation and give you the resilience, the courage, the bravery. Right now, Walt, I think I can kick King Kong's butt. You know, that's how God, He gives you all these gifts the day you were born, and you just have to learn how to use them, how to pull them up and get that courage. And now the woman I am today, I look back on that woman years ago and I think, oh my gosh, you know, I could never be that again, ever. I'm outspoken. I speak up. If I see a misjustice on the street, I say something. People don't expect it coming from me, but if I see some younger guy being rude to an older gentleman, I speak up for that man. And one of my neighbors said, Judy, are you sure you want to say that to them? I said, yes, I do, because he's in the wrong.
Yeah.
How would he want to be disrespected like that?
Yeah.
So
people many times just walk by, just keep walking.
They do. It's sad, and I can't do that. I can't do that.
Anything I didn't ask you think is important to say about your journey, how you hope to reach out to people and give them hope?
I do. I want you to pay attention to who you're with, what environment you're in. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You know, be observant. And I also want to point out in the book, Walt, that there are a lot of different miracles in there. One that my mother helped create years before this incident even came about, that saved my life. Yes, I know.
And it's interesting, too, you've used a lot of your life experiences that maybe really scarred you and hurt you, but God was able to turn it around for your good later.
Yes.
And it didn't make any sense at the time until later.
Yeah.
Like that fight in the bathroom.
Yes, yes. And I have to say, that fight in the bathroom with that individual, she was the last person I touched on my way home.
Oh, really?
Yes. There were 1,600 women out in the yard celebrating and screaming and yelling and being joyful, and staff, captains, lieutenants, everybody. And I came out of the medical unit where you have to go before you're released, and she was walking facing me, and I said, hey, and I called her by name. I said, I'm going home, and she gave me a high five. And I thought, how ironic. She was the one that was going to kill me when I first came in, and now she's high-fiving me on the way out. That's how good God is. He makes your enemies bow at your feet.
Wow. This is an amazing story, Judy. Thank you so much for sharing this. I think it'd be, you know, such a great Mother's Day gift, and, you know, the light's going to find some people with this.
Thank you, Walt, for having me. I've enjoyed this, and thank you for mentioning the book.